So, good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to the program, um, PG Diploma in Distance Education, course MDE 412. And we'll start by asking questions. And I think some of you would like to ask some questions. So, please go ahead and ask your questions, and then we will start today's class.
So,
Yes, Mr. Moses.
I don't know, maybe I should ask all the questions together or I should ask them one after the other as we respond to them.
Please ask one at a time so that in case there are some other people also, then they can also ask, and then you can ask your question subsequently. Please go ahead.
Okay, ma. My first question, as I was going through the materials, I was able to get time to go through the materials. So there was a particular point where I saw the basic condition of learning. That's from the block one. The basic condition of learning, talking about contiguity, practice, reinforcement, feedback. Then I noticed something in the course material because as I was studying it, I was going through check your knowledge. And with the other courses, when the after the end of the course or after the end of a unit, all the check your knowledge answers are provided. So for an individual so I believe it's a form of feedback for me to know if what I've written down is correct with what is expected from me. But for this particular course, I discovered that the check your knowledge answers are not at the back of the each unit of the courses. So I wanted to call your attention to that particular point, ma. That why is it that the check your knowledge answers are not provided for us to be able to check if what we have written down we have properly understand what we are learning or we are not understanding yet. So that's my observation now.
Okay, so I will respond to that. So you will see that it is firstly it is check your progress, because it is not, the questions that you're talking about are those which come at the end of a section. In each section, an area is taken up, and then it is followed by a check your progress, so that you are able to assess whether you have gone right or not. In this course also, the answers are there, but they are not in the form of full written answers. They are all in the form of giving you a hint as to where the answer lies. For instance, we have in some you might find it is from a particular section. So the answers are the hints, I would say, are directing you to that particular section, and you have to read that section, so and yourself check whether the answer that you have given is in that, which is available in that section, and how is it that it is how it is going to be, how does it compare with what you have written. So the hints are there. Please remember that this is a master's degree course. It is a PG diploma, where postgraduate diploma in distance education. Therefore, for you to be given exact word to word answers, you are all well above that level, where you do not need to be spoon fed with answers. So therefore the answers are not in that format. They are in the form of hints to the questions which are there. So please check your answers by going to the concerned section, which is indicated at the end of the unit, where the check your progress is given. Okay. Any other question?
Sorry, ma. It seems I don't know what I'm trying to say now is that, for example, now currently now I open my course material And on page 11, there is check your progress one there. So where it was written, write your answer in the space below. Check your answer with the answer given at the end of this unit. So check your answer with the answer given at the end of this unit. So at the
Mhm.
end of the unit, there was no answer given. That's what I'm trying to call. I'm not trying to make a word for word comparison. But what I'm trying to say is at least if I've written down something and I go to the check your answer, at least
I'm not
I will
able
be able
to.
to
Which block are you talking about? Because I'm not able to see on page 11. There is nothing. There is check.
block.
I don't
I
know
mean block block one.
which section.
It should be unit one.
So unit one starts from page 13.
Unit one. It's supposed to be 1.36. Oh yes, at the end of 1.36 before 1.4 before perspective of learning.
It's 1.3. So the there's no 1.36. It is only 1.3.3. I don't know where you are reading.
I
And
think this course is one is 1412.
yes,
I believe the
412. So
course is 412 ma.
yes, but I'm not able to see 1.3.6. It is 1.3.3 approaches to learning.
Okay, I don't know, maybe it was an updated material, but that 1.3.6 on my own is approaches to learning. So probably it's 1.3.3 on yours. I don't know,
So
but 1.3.6 is approaches to learning on my own
the
material that
answers
I
are very
downloaded
much
from
given
the.
here at 1.8. The answer is given. What is the? It says differentiate between surface and deep approaches to learning. Discuss the basic conditions of learning, and the answer is given. Check your progress one. Surface learning. This implies blah blah blah. Please also see subsection 1.3.3. You see, the point that I'm trying to make, Mr. Moses, is that you in the sections, the concerned sections are identified, and remember, the learners who are studying in distance education, we assume that they also bring with them a lot of their own knowledge to the table, right? And therefore when the section is given, you can go to the section and see, and you can also read up extra material which you might like to read. So in at least in this course, you have been given only the hints where the answer lies, and you will have to make that effort to go to that section
Sorry,
and
ma. I
read.
think I think where the challenge is probably the material that you just
Okay,
open
so
now is
maybe
an
you can.
updated material.
Okay, so
Probably the material you open now is an updated material.
Mr. Moses,
Just as
maybe.
how the
Mr. Moses,
Okay.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
so just as
most of the teachers are using the materials from the LMS, Learning Management System. So if you want to make reference, you can go to LMS. Okay, so that I think you are using different version. So go to
and
LMS
that's
and
what
make
I'm
reference
that's what
with the
I'm trying to
section.
say. That's what I'm
Okay, I
trying to
think that
say.
would be better. Yeah. Okay,
Mm,
good.
it's
Okay,
all right.
so and you can speak to me separately also. Any other common point that you would like to make about the material or about the course or anything like that?
Sorry, just to add on that,
Anyone else?
one
Yes,
more
Mr.
resource.
Wilson.
I think
Yes.
the answers are there though at the end of. I mean, almost all the sources that I'm using, I found the answers where they say they should check my possible answers. I have the answers given. So, for example, the context that he was saying, uh, that was 1.63. I still have the answers asking about the basic conditions of learning, and I've been given the answer. So I don't know which type of materials Moses is using, but the material that we've been given, I have the answers.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wilson. Anyone else? Maybe
Okay,
separately
Mr.
you can help
Moses, you
Mr.
can.
Moses.
You can get the updated version from the LMS, download the latest version
It's
from
all
the
right. I
LMS
understand that.
website.
I understand that. I will try and look for the updated version.
Yeah,
So I
Okay,
think we
fine,
can move
yeah,
forward.
the
fine.
updated version.
So
So
any,
most of the information, yeah.
oh, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Anyone else on another topic? Anything related to another topic that you would like to ask? Because then we'll
Then,
start.
sorry, ma, I
Mr.
also wanted to ask regarding the assignments that were given.
Mr.
So
Moses,
on
I'll
the
take that at
assignment,
the end of the class. Let me
ma,
answer that at the end of the class.
ma, you said?
On assignments, I will answer that at the end of the class.
It's all right,
Okay.
ma.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. So then in that case, sorry, in that case, I'd like to begin because we are running a little short of time. So I wanted to take up two things today. Mr. Moses, you'll have to mute yourself, please. And today, what we have gone through earlier on, if you remember, we had done the theories of learning, which is behavioralism and cognitivism. And today I had thought that we'll talk about a little bit about constructivism, but I also want to, more importantly, go on to talk about the instructional design, which is block 2, because we are in the 4th class and we should move a little faster. So I'd like to do that. And today, therefore, I'm going to try to put in 2 sets of block 1 and a little bit of start on block 2 also, so that we can continue. We have 4 more classes left and I'd like to finish them a little faster. Okay. So I'm putting on my presentation and you can just tell me if you are able to see it. Do let me know if you are able to see it. Can you see the presentation?
Not yet.
I think it's coming.
Okay, yeah. Yes, we are seeing now.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Okay, thank you. So then here today we will speak about constructivist school of thought. And as I told you that when we speak about learning theories, there are 3 major theories that we are talking about in this course. One is behavioralism, cognitivism, and constructivism. Constructivism is considered a very, very learner-friendly way for teaching to take place. And the major constructivist thought processes have been developed by theorists such as Dewey, Piaget, Montessori, Brunner, and Vygotsky. Why this theory is important is because it gives you a different perspective to what the behaviorists thought and as against what the cognitives thought. So in fact, it takes forward some of the theories which have been put forward by Piaget and Dewey. Because here what is happening is that if you remember, we were talking about SR connection, which is the stimulus response connection, and the change in behavior which came about because of the beliefs of the behaviorist theory of theory. But now the constructivists have said that there is more to it. And they have talked about a context, they have talked about experiences, and they have talked about challenging the thinking of the behaviorist theories. So here, what constructivism basically attempts to say to teach us is that learners construct from their own experiences. Here, the focus of constructivists is based on experiences, on things that a person does and learns from them. If you will recall, the cognitivists also talked about knowledge. But here, the constructivists take it forward and they connect knowledge to experiences. What we experience, what we see, what we go through in terms of attitudes, in terms of the impact of it, in terms of reflection. This is what they are talking about. And then they also say that individuals create their own understanding based on the interaction and known phenomena. When you go through, just a moment, please. Somebody is entering, so I have to admit them. Uh, so here, what we are talking about is that. Just one moment. Is Mr. Shailendra Venka? Is he there? Are you there? Okay, so when we are talking about constructivism, we are talking about learners. We are talking about learning from experiences. We are talking about the fact that learners are uh, creating their own understanding based upon interaction, which means you interact with something, you reflect about it, and you come to a conclusion which is based upon that interaction. And that is why it is a kind of, it is different, or it takes forward what the cognitor says, because they remember, if you last time also we spoke about it, we spoke about schema, but here we are talking about building upon it, building upon your own interactions with the environment, or with society, or with any kind of other peers, or your own colleagues. So in doing so, what is emphasized here by the constructivists is that this type of knowledge building, this type of structuring of the knowledge is individual. Each individual builds themselves. Therefore, my interactions would be different from, say, another person's. My experiences would be different from another person's. My learning and would be based upon my understanding. Therefore, they have expanded this whole this understanding of the way in which knowledge is understood by each person, and emphasize the fact that it may be, or it can be individualized to the extent as to how I perceive a particular thing. What is my sense of reflection? And also because my experiences might be different from your experiences, and therefore in that sense also the understanding of a person would be different for different people. In terms of constructivism also, there are, as we said that we're talking about trivial constructivism, which is based upon your own experiences. But there is another aspect of constructivism, which is called social constructivism, and this is something very important. And today in our education systems, we speak a lot about it, because our own situation, our own social surroundings, our own cultural settings, they influence our understanding. The way in which you understand a particular thing will be influenced by your surroundings, and mine will be influenced because I am a person who is impacted by the cultural or the social surroundings of where I stand. And that is why when we talk about education also, we have to keep in mind that every child who comes into the classroom brings with him his or her own cultural and social understanding, and teachers, as teachers, we have to understand that, not impose our own understanding on the child, but allow the child to grow, allow the student to grow, and be able to associate any kind of new knowledge with their own understanding. And therefore, the construction of ideas is actually based upon this type of a social understanding, a social context in which they belong. And if you read about social construction, there's a lot of work which has been done on social constructivism. In fact, as countries and as nation states, it is important that the educational systems of each country or each society is embedded in their own culture, not in cultures which are thrust upon you. This type of an understanding, it helps us to understand. And in this understanding, language is also very important. I would like to tell you that in India recently, we have a new education policy, which is called the National Education Policy 2020. It came into being in July 2020, where our own policy emphasizes hugely on the fact that we must, India, which has so many cultures and so many languages there, now we are emphasizing that we must provide opportunity for learners to study in their own mother tongue. Earlier on, the emphasis was on English medium schools or Hindi medium schools or local schools. But now this whole topic, this whole thought process that there must be multilingualism and children must be taught in their own mother tongue, at least till a certain age, so that they are able to relate to their local culture, they are able to relate to their local environment. And this idea of indigenous knowledge is also very important. And this is all coming about because of this understanding that learners learn better when they are placed in their own cultural and social environment. And that is what the constructivist people like Vygotsky and all have talked about, this aspect only, saying that it is from the real world that learners learn, and each person's knowledge is peculiar to them. And therefore, learning is not just an educational process, it is actually a social process. And I'm sure that you will agree with me, because so many things we learn from our own environment, the way we behave, the way we speak, the way our attitudes are made, the way we present ourselves is based upon our own cultural and social environment. And when I say this, I'd like to stop for a moment here. And if you can give me an example of any kind of learning that is unique to you, unique to your social context. And I will also give you some examples which are unique to our context, the Indian context, and in terms of understanding of language also. Then we will just have a small discussion and then we will proceed. Any suggestions or any experiences that you would like to say that this is how we do it in my country, this is how we do it in India, this is how we do it in Nigeria? So then we can have a nice little discussion on that. Because remember, we are all coming with very, very wealthy traditions of culture and languages. And each language has its own, in our own understanding, that plays a lot of very important part in our understanding, in our correct connections that we make with people. Any examples that you would like to give, tell me? Should I tell you an example?
Yes,
Madam,
ma'am.
tell us one example.
Yes, is Mr. You want to tell me something, Mr. Ishaku?
Yes, ma. I want to ask for more clarification.
Okay.
That is, if I
So
got you right, ma.
Okay. So
Shall I go ahead?
Yes, please go ahead.
All right. I say, according to this contradict, these theories, they mean that the learning is social, because that means the learner will learn things unconsciously, that is indeliberately. The learning will not be deliberate. So it is by our socialization, our activities. I think if I get you right, that's what I assimilate from these theories,
Yes.
constructivists. So I can give example in that aspect, as in case
Yes,
of
please.
our moral.
Yes,
There are
absolutely.
some
Please go ahead.
moral, all right. There are some moral values in the society that it is not even, you are not even asked to do or don't, but having seen the structure, the normal standard of the society, of the particular society, then you are going to abide by it. You already know that you have inculcated in you that this is right and this is wrong. And when you do this wrong, it is really punishable. So you must avoid doing it. That's what I got from this constructivism. Thank you, man.
Absolutely. Very well said and very well explained also. Can you hear me? Yes. So, very well said, Mr. Ishaku, and very well explained also. Because as he said, the way our society, accepts something, what is the environment around us, the way in which we learn from maybe our parents, our elders, our community, what is even moral values. In fact, values today are very, very important. And what is understood as values are also a part of education. And this type of education tells us to differentiate between what is correct and what is not correct, what our society thinks as correct or not. And let me also tell you that that societies, their behavior also changes. What maybe now I'm not talking about moral values, but I'm talking about the what might be considered the way correct or wrong may also depend upon your own society, the where you live. Something may be correct or may be wrong depending upon where you live also. And your understanding of basic things will also change because of the environment around you. Anyone else?
Professor,
Yes,
so
please, Mr. Mohan.
yes, so constructivism, they looked at the society and the environment, isn't it? You look at what is happening in the society, for example, the beliefs, the culture, then from there you construct knowledge out of it. Is it?
Yes. Your understanding, your knowledge is also influenced by your own society. So, would you like to ask something, Mr. Morris? And
I have a
it is also,
I have a question. Sorry, Prof.
yes, Mr. Wilson. Yes, Mr. Wilson.
So that is where you starting out.
Your voice is not coming through, Mr. Wilson.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? All right. Thank you. So I was asking that in situations where things like culture or experiences are not static, how do we maintain the same level of knowledge in kids using the constructivist model? Like if something happened now and it has changed, yet I want to teach, how do we maintain the same kind of knowledge, yet some of the cultural things are not static? Thank you.
Okay, we'll flag that and keep it just now. I will flag your question and answer it a little later. Anyone with any experience that you would like to share? And again, I'm saying this that as Mr. Wilson also said, that the understanding can change depending upon the environment where we are. For instance, a simple thing like this, that in many cultures, I'm giving a very, very elementary example. In many cultures, what happens is that when you enter someone's house, or even your own home, in fact, we leave our shoes at the outside the door. And it's not appropriate to come in with your shoes which you wear outside the house into the house. In some other cultures, it is not not appropriate to be seen without shoes. Something, I'm giving a very elementary example, but depending on the place where you stay, of course, in COVID, everybody started keeping their shoes outside the door. But depending on the way you stay, depending on the environment, you internalize those kind of habits, those kind of attitudes, and those kind of real world experiences is what we. And on a lighter vein, I must tell you that. My nephew, when he was very small, just one moment, Mr. When he was very small, he used to live. They were living in a place where it was a milk factory, and there were large tankers that came full of milk. So when he went to the town school, and it was a village where this was happening, and when he went to the town school and they were trying to take his admission to admit him into a classroom there, so the teacher says, what do tankers carry? So this little boy, 3 years, he said, tankers carry milk. So she said, no, you're wrong, tankers carry oil, they carry petrol. So he came back and told his mother, he says, my teacher, she asked me that, but tankers carry milk. Because in his environment, the tankers really carried milk. So he was not wrong, and neither was the teacher wrong. But this appreciation of another person's environment, another person's culture, another person's is both were correct in their own understandings. But this is something that constructivists talk about. That knowledge is built because of your own experiences and because of your own environment. And you cannot, as Mr. Wilson was saying, how do you differentiate? As a teacher, I cannot force my understanding on someone because I believe this is correct. So education slowly, in terms of what the constructivists talk about, is the fact that you have to bring in everybody, and this collaboration, cooperation, these are all ways in which they emphasize this. Yes, I will keep Mr. Wilson's questions still there, but just quickly to ask Mr. Buhari. Yes, Mr. Buhari, you'd like to ask something? Please
Hello,
go
good
ahead.
morning, ma'am. Good morning,
Good
ma'am.
morning.
Based on my understanding about the activity now, is I have some students in my school. So I'm teaching them Quran. So we are going to memorize half page every day. So there is some students that they are so smart. After closing hours, before pick up, they used to come and read tomorrow's memorization. So that's from there. After 1 to 2 days, some of the students come and join those smart students. They used to come and read for me the tomorrow's memorization on the same day. That means they can use to give me 1 page in a day. So after my understanding, I understand them that they can do or they can memorize 1 page in a day. So I just put them, I say, from now, we are going to memorize one page every Saturday and Sunday because we have a lot of time in the Saturday and Sunday. So, and most of them, or 80% of them, they used to memorize before the end of the period. So that's my understanding and my listen. Thank you.
That's a good experience that you're sharing. Thank you so much. That is so much. And this will also lead us to the fact that when we talk about the other components of constructivism, because when we talk about these features, some of these is what just now what was being talked about by some of you, is even in terms of discovery learning. These are all these are all principles of constructivism. These are all ways in which the constructivism is taught. So this is what we are talking about, and we are talking about when we talk, for instance, this thing about discovery learning. Discovery learning is something that even Piaget talks about. But the whole idea is that how is it that you allow students, you give them the freedom, you allow them to construct their own meanings, so that it is meaningful knowledge which they are making. They discover for themselves what is it is. You see, the whole concept of Montessori, which is used for play schools and for young preschool children, is this only, that give them the opportunity to discover for themselves what is this. Because the idea is that they if they are able to construct their own knowledge, then the same thing, what we also said about UNESCO, what learning to do, learning to be, learning to learn. So if they are able to learn how to learn, then they can learn anything. And therefore, if they are able to construct knowledge through discoveries, they can then construct any kind of knowledge. So not by rote, not by thrust, but by discovering is how knowledge is constructed. Constructed. Another thing which Vygotsky talks about very importantly is what is called the ZPD, which is the zone of proximal development. In this is also this is done by Lev Vygotsky, where he says that that the distance between the actual development that takes place by a learner independently and the level of his potential development, if he is helped by a teacher, the gap between these two is what is called the zone of the ZP, which means that you may know something, but maybe you will learn more if you are guided by a teacher, and that gap is what is talked about by Vygotsky, and how this should be this gap. If we are able to reduce that gap, then how does learning take place? We'll talk a little bit more about it later. Another important thing which is talked about by the constructivists is that of the idea of scaffolding. You know what a scaffolding is. In normal everyday terminology also, we talk about scaffolding. You see a building which is being built, and there is a scaffolding which is put by which the laborers or the workers, they use that scaffolding to support the building and to move up and down so that they are able to reach the higher levels. So here also, in terms of learning, what Vygotsky says is that learning also takes place when there is certain amount of hand-holding which is taking place, which is there. When students come in contact with other students who know more than them, and they interact, and maybe the person who knows more acts as a scaffolding for the person who knows lesser. And in doing so, there is an exchange of knowledge which takes place between them. And here also, by this hand holding, this is another way of reducing that gap which we spoke about in terms of the zone of proximal development, that someone who knows a lot helps the person who knows little in order to reduce the gap between them. So scaffolding is another way by which learning can take place. And if it is done, if it is a teacher who is doing it, then it is like acting as a teacher, as a guide, as an elder, that is what is called, when we're talking about learning and instruction, then by giving instruction also you are helping the learner to learn. Yet another feature which is there is that of cognitive apprenticeship. This cognitive apprenticeship is again same thing. How do you reduce the gap between what a person knows and what a person can know by any kind of support? You know apprenticeship. What is an apprentice? Apprentice is a person who is learning, who is on the job, who is learning. You're in any kind of skilling program, or in when you're doing this kind of work, you can be hired as an apprentice. And therefore here also cognitive apprenticeship basically implies that you are teaching someone who knows less, but he's like an apprentice, he or she is like an apprentice, and therefore you are trying to develop their skills or attitudes or any kind of information knowledge that they have to be done. Those persons are apprentices in order to develop their knowledge. This could be, because remember, when we are talking about teaching, we are not just talking about knowledge, we're talking about skills, we're talking about attitudes. Again, as was said by Mr. Uba also, that this type of learning which is taking place, because you are getting together by observing, by enacting, by being led forward, these are all uh, come under the idea of cognitive partnership, apprenticeship, which the constructivists speak of as a way in which learning can take place. And again, we're talking about coaching. Coaching is also in the same genre as scaffolding, where you are guiding and you are providing assistance for a person to become more strong in a particular area. This could be in terms of by giving some kind of additional inputs. It could be in the form of giving some coaching feedback, reminders, guiding, drawing up a timetable for the person to how to study. But these are all ways by which the zone of proximal development can be reduced. And very importantly, that all these aspects of constructivism actually help the person who is maybe an apprentice or at a lower level to become more confident, to be able to master what needs to be learned. And the last part, which last thing that we're talking about is, in fact, we've already spoken about it in many ways, is the contextual learning which is there. Construct, cons, 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 when we're talking about contextual learning, we are talking about the fact that there are different learning environments in which learning takes place. These, it could be your home, it could be the society, it could be your classroom, it could be your workplace also. But how do you learn in all these different environments? How is it that you process information which comes from all these environments? How do you make sense out of this? And this sense might vary because your context at that point of time would be different. And therefore this is why when we talk about these features of contextual environment or learning, these are all very important parts of what the constructives say. And depending on these parts, the way in this goes, this is how we as teachers have to change the way in which we deliver our learning systems. If you remember, we spoke about, when we spoke about Pavlov, when we talked about giving the stimulus and waiting for the response, or talking about the reinforcement. In this case, what the constructivists are talking about is that you have to have a different approach to designing your materials, designing your classroom where. And here the constructivists are talking about they are talking about things like problem-based learning, where you pick up a problem and you work around it. So that, just a moment, somebody wants to enter. Okay, so when we're talking about problem-based thing, we are talking about how you take up a problem, you take up a case study, you take up any issue, and you work around it so that the learner learns how to resolve problems and how to address those problems. It can be then the context would not matter. It could be any place where the problem is, but the learner is able to work on it. When we're talking about anchored instruction is actually used fairly importantly in distance education, because here what we are trying to do is that as teachers, as distance teachers, we are trying to, on one hand, allow the student to explore on their own, to learn on their own, and we are trying to get them to be autonomous learners. But on the other hand, as a teacher, as a distance teacher, it is also my responsibility to make sure that I am able to handhold you where it is required. And therefore, that hand holding, like for instance, just now, you are all distance learners and I am the distance teacher. So my job is to help you to, in case you get to in case you have a problem and you are not able to do it, then there is some amount of help that comes from the teacher. And there is also the important thing is that at the end of the day, what we are trying to do is to prepare what the constructivists say is that the learners should be education should be such that the learners are able to logically think, reflect, come up with answers. They should be able to, therefore their learning activities should be designed as such a way that these type of attributes are strengthened. And this type of a way in which we learn is strengthened. They also talk about cooperative learning, where the idea is that learning should be such that you are able to learn from each other, whether it is peer learning, whether it is learning through collaboration, whether it is transferring learning from each other. These kind of things are also important for in terms of the constructivists and in the understanding of constructivism. And the constructivist theories demand that we should be preparing our materials, designing our classroom instruction, designing our distance construction in such a way that there is anchored instruction, but the learner is able to function and resolve their own, construct their own knowledge, because at the end of the day, being able to do this on their own is what learning is all about. I think I'm going to stop for this part of the session. I'm going to stop here. And any questions on this that you would like to ask me? Yes, Mr. Abba, you've raised your hand.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Abba.
I want to ask a question on the future of constructors. So, Mr. Buhari, on the future that you just mentioned previously, Mr. Buhari has given example of his student. So, which future relate to the example given by Mr. Buhari?
I'm not.
It is scaffold. Sorry.
Which one? Scaffolding? You want to ask on scaffolding?
No, I'm trying to relate what with the Mr. Buhari's example. He made example about his student learning, memorizing Quran, right? So which
that
example?
One page.
Yeah, one page, then from 1 page to 2 pages. So which future which of the future relate to this example?
One feature.
Is it scaffolding?
Feature.
Yeah, feature.
No.
Is it scaffolding
okay,
or
feature?
coaching?
Which feature? Let's ask Mr. Buhari himself. What he's raised a question. And what he said was, there was an example which was given by Mr. Buhari, I think, that the students were learning one page each day. You all heard that. So let's see whether it comes in the which feature of constructivism do you consider it as? Let's hear from you. If that's the question, Mr. Abba, that's what you're asking, no?
Yeah, but I think like it may be either one of the two, either coaching or scaffolding. I'm not so sure.
Okay, so Mr. Anyone, any answers to that? Any answers to that? What do you think that was?
I think it's coaching. Yes.
You think it's coaching? He thinks it's coaching, Mr. Abba.
So why is this coaching?
It could be coaching, and if you extend it a little bit, and it could also, it is coaching, yes. I also think it's coaching, because it could also be that because those students are being helped to come forward. It's not scaffolding really, because scaffolding is more kind of hand holding. Here there was something else which was taking place. If you extend it more, it could also be like this thing which I talked about, that tutoring of before that, I think Mr. Scott and Mr. Moses have raised their hands. Yes, let's hear you all. Then this is a nice discussion that we are having. Yes, Mr. Moses.
Ma, I want to just chip in that is this example, can we actually classify it as a constructive way of learning or cognitive? Is it an example?
Okay, what is it?
Looking at the...
Mr. Scott?
Yes, ma.
You also wanted to ask something, Mr. Scott?
Yes, ma'am. Actually saying that the example that Mr. Buhari has given, can we classify it under constructivism or under cognitivism? That is actually what is bothering me, because I'm seeing it that it's more
of what the class has to say. One sec, Mr. Abba, Mr. Jibrin Abba.
Good afternoon, ma. Yeah, when we talk about Mr. Buhari's example, I look at it that the teacher is learning from the student how much page he was to give them to memorize. Before he gave them half a page, after some days he learned that this student can do. So therefore, this like more of like somebody you meet, like scaffolding, you said, or somebody you meet knows more than you like. But it's not that the student know that him, but he's learning from the student actually how much they can able to memorize. So he modified the method or the number of the pages based on what he learned from them or he experienced from their abilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm not giving an answer, because these discussions are also important for us to understand. Yes, Mr. Ishaku?
Yes, Professor. In Nigeria, during 1989, the National Policy on Education innovate what we call then as a
Can you
nomadic.
just repeat it? What was that you said? I couldn't hear it. In Nigeria?
Yes, in Nigeria. During 1989, the government established instructional curriculum, which is called nomadic education. That is the knowledge, the knowledge is given to mostly herders, cattle herders. They don't have specific location to settle. So they used to roam around the Nigeria everywhere in search for green plants for their animals to feed them. So the government in curriculum innovation, they establish such education to their children wherever they go. their children will be given education. So in this aspect, I want to ask Ma, where and how can we classify such innovation in terms of these three learning instructional design? That is, are we going to classify them under constructivism? That's my question, Ma. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ishaku. I think the Nigeria's nomadic education program is well known across the world, because I think that was a very, very unique kind of a program that you are following. I think you have a commission also, if I'm not wrong. You also had a commission for nomadic education, if I remember correctly. So it's difficult to say that whether you can't. You see, again, I'm saying this, that we cannot slot things in that I'm going to follow this, I'm going to do this. Sometimes you might have to amalgamate and take different theories also. As I said, that even in terms of the way in which we write distance education material, we take theories, we understand the theories, but we use some part of some theory and some part of it. But I have seen many schools which function completely in a way where they promote such kind of learning which is actually based on the constructivist schools of thought. The emphasis there is on learning by doing. It is on constructing your own knowledge. Their examination system is different, because there again their classwork is different. The way they approach the topics, the way they construct the curriculum, that is different. So in a sense that if schools do have the freedom to do these kind of ways in which their teaching learning processes should be designed, but to say that to use this or that may be difficult. All that I'm saying is, and all that we're saying is, that these theories are proven theories, that this is how learning takes place. We have to, as teachers, we have to teach so that we are able to teach the best out of these theories which are already there. As we talked about the example that was given earlier on in terms of learning. So you could also say that it is, as a teacher, you are tutoring them, you are guiding them. It is a kind of coaching that is taking place. I think you have to be conscious of the ways in which you can deliver a lesson or teach. Once you know that these are the different ways in which you can do it, you can decide which part of the curriculum you are going to take in a particular way you're going to teach. Okay. So having said that, I think I'd like to move forward, because I want to go on to talking a little bit about block 2. Otherwise, we will be a little behind in our classes. Can I proceed further? So now I'd just like to speak a little bit, if we are able to get some time. I'd like to just show you some designs, because this course on instructional design in block 2, what we have done is that we have taken up some of the theories of instructional design now. Till now, we were doing the theories of learning. Now we are talking about the models, not the theories, but the models of instructional design. And why this is important is because as teachers, we do have to design material at times. You also have to design some sort of curriculum that you might need to design. designing instruction also. Therefore, you should be in a position where you are able to understand the concept of instructional design and then apply it to design your courses or design your classroom teaching or even design your training programs. You can design all these. This course is basically about instructional design. So whether it is teaching, designing, training, all these can be applied. It is important to say that instructional design pertains to how learning events should be designed, because the ultimate aim is that learning should take place, and we will try to learn what are the different designs, and first and foremost also understand what exactly is learning design. So just a moment, I will just start my PPT and then we will start that. Okay. Yes. Just a moment, please. We'll just start in a moment. So, just a moment. I'm just allowing someone to enter. I think all the slides are coming together, I think. So,
Yes.
yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a moment. I think there is something I need to sort this out. Little bit of a challenge on this. क्योंकि क्या करें, अब ये सारा ऐसे ही आ गया. Can you see the presentation now? Can you see the presentation,
Yes,
please?
yes, yes.
Yes, we are
All
seeing,
right.
ma.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry for the delay, but these technologies happen. Sometimes one is all right. So I also want to take up in the remaining time that is there. I'd like to talk a little bit about about instructional design, because this block, which is block 2, is about instructional design models and theories. So having said that, let's just come to instructional design directly. So if you remember that in the first day, class that we did was, we were talking about learning and instruction, and we spoke about what is the difference between learning and what is the difference between instruction. Now today we are going to talk about instructional design, and here, before we do that, we'll just revisit what exactly instruction per se is. And when we are talking about instruction, if you will recall, and I'm just going back to what we did earlier on also, that when we're talking about instruction, we're talking about goal-directed teaching learning, where you find that the aim is that a particular goal has to be achieved, and whatever we are doing, that is all a arrangement which we as teachers or as trainers, we are trying to make an arrangement of those learning conditions so that that goal is achieved. And there are different scholars, there are different philosophers who have talked about instruction design, and as you can see on the slide, that they've talked about it as an arrangement of information and environment to facilitate learning, where environment covers the place of instruction, methods, media, equipment that guide a student's learning. Another, Robert Garnier, talks about it as a human activity which facilitates learning, involves pre-planned activities that help in learning. Again, Smith and Ragan call it a systematic process of translating general principles of learning and instruction into plans of instruction materials and learning. Basically, what I'm trying to emphasize is that each of the scholars is talking about it instructional design as a means by which learning is facilitated and the goal of learning is achieved. So when we're talking about instructional design, remember, we are trying to achieve the goal of learning for our learners. And even in terms of all this, Rita Ritchie, all this, again, you will see that they may be using the terms, they may be using different, but the idea is that you have a plan in hand. And instructional design is basically a plan that we are making. It is a blueprint that we are making. And in that blueprint is aimed in such a way that as teachers, or we are able to create a sequence of events by which our learners are able to learn, or we are able to do a process by which we are able to make, so that the whole idea of systematically presenting what we have, it's not haphazard, it is not unplanned, it is not unplanned, it is a process which is a planned process in which we as teachers, or we as instructional designers, we think about what we are going to do, and in doing so we hope that we are able to achieve that goal of learning. And when we talk about the purpose of instructional design, we are talking about the fact that, of course, it has to be presented in a systematic manner, in a planned manner, but it also has to cater to the needs of learners, whether they are distance learners or they are face-to-face learners, but it has to cater to their needs. And therefore, when we are talking about this, doing needs assessment studies, training needs analysis, these are all very important part of the understanding, and we'll speak about that later also. In terms of instructional design also has to cater to different types of learners, individual, as you probably know that that there are different learning styles that learners learn by, and therefore being able to cater to those individual learning styles is also important. And when we are speaking of the instructional design for distance education, then the most important thing to remember is that the learner and the teacher are in two different spaces, in whether they are geographically in different spaces. Of course they are separated by geography, but they may also be separated by time. You say good morning to me and I say good evening to you, because we are in different time zones also. There we are also different. Distance learners are separated also because of the very different types of accesses that they may that learners may have, in terms of also ensuring that the instructional design is not just about a one-way process. It is a two-way process, and that two-way process also has to be one where there is an assessment and an evaluation of the learning, where feedback is provided so that we are able to ensure that the direction that we have taken, this process that we have adopted is correct, and that learning is actually taking place. Even in terms of effectiveness, it is important that learning is, especially when we're talking about distance learning and we're talking about distance learning in developing countries, it's very important that issues of access, equity, affordability, availability are all kept in mind when we are designing instruction. Instruction design cannot afford to ignore the situation on the ground and the needs of the learners. These are all parts of our understanding of instructional design. What is our role? We, as teachers who will now be graduating from and becoming instructional designers, then our role is to design the course. You may like to design. You might, supposing you are working in an institution which gives you the freedom to design a course, then you should be able to develop that course, design that course. You should also be able to adopt the most appropriate model of designing the course. You should also be able to arrange the content in such a way that the sequencing is proper, that it follows a systematic arrangement of the learning content. And today we talk about learning outcomes, whether you see, I'm sure in your own country policies also, in terms of the sustainable development goals, in terms of other type of instructions that come from just a moment, Jyoti. एक बार sorry, huh? When बोलो प्यास लगे. In terms of that, these are just Amiteshwar ma'am को बोलो ले लेंगी वो phone. These are all ways and means by which we try to make sure that all these are achieved, and it is our responsibility. Again, as distance learners, it is important that it is our responsibility that the type of media that we adopt, the type of platforms that we adopt, the type of ways, the type of courseware that we adopt is all such that it is suitable to our learners. In terms of the fact that instructional design have models, there is a systematic way in which most instructional design models work. And you will see that the most important aspect of an instructional design model is that of analysis. I spoke about the fact that learners, we have to know our learners. Yes, of course, we have to know our learners. And that cannot happen unless you are aware of, you have done a needs analysis or a training needs analysis and so on. Even in IGNOU, where I'm working, before we design a course, or before we begin designing a course, one of the mandatory things that we have to do is to do a needs analysis, because it is important, of course, to know whether this course has a market or not. whether there will be people who will be interested in taking up this topic. As a faculty, I can propose a course, but is my course going to actually find a market? And if it does, then who are those people who will take this course? What kind of costing will it come? All those are aspects which are part of your part of the analysis which is done. In terms of then, if it is a course which seems to be working, then to be able to see what kind of outcomes will be achieved. How will I prepare the outcomes? And then based upon that outcomes, how will I decide what kind of content am I going to supplement the outcomes with? In block 3, we will talk about separately. We will talk about learning outcomes and learning objectives. But these outcomes and objectives are something that countries all over the world are grappling with to make sure that the learning outcomes are achieved. In terms of different theories, as we talked about just now, that what aspect of which theory we are going to involve in our course. What kind of resources are we going to take? Whether you're going to do it on your own or whether you will have a team which is going to make a course. Once I've made the course, I must try it out. I must be sure that it is going to work. And again, in terms of dissemination and follow-up, how do I work it? So these are some of the characteristics that almost all ID models follow. Let us now look at specific models. When we talk about specific models, then we are talking about some models are those that you may be aware of, you may have even used them. I'm just putting it across to you one by one. Some models I'm showing to you. Again, they could be for the classroom or they could be for a distance learning system. The first one that we're talking about, and we spoke about it earlier on also, is that of the 9 instructions of 9 events. They're called events of instruction, and this model is followed very often in very many places. When we are designing a course, when we are designing any material or course material or writing it, how is it that we are able to attract or gain attention? This is what Robert Gagne, who is a behavioralist, who spoke about. How do you ensure that you are able to attract attention? Again, in terms of the second thing that we talked about, that if you have gained attention, then how is it that you are going to tell the learners what is the objective of this program? This session that I'm doing, what is my objective? Third one is that, remember, we just spoke a little while earlier on about the constructivists. We also spoke earlier about the cognitives. The whole issue of what the cognitives say is that there is a hierarchy of knowledge, and building on things that are already known to the learner helps to recall. So the similar kind of thing is also spoken by Gagne, where he talks about making sure that you're able to recall prior learning. In terms of remember, and then presenting a stimulus, providing the guidance, making sure that there is a good performance that comes, guiding the students, providing feedback to them, assessing performances, and then how do you enhance this transfer? It's not that you've just learned it and forgotten about it. How do you apply it? How do you transfer this is one of the other 9 parts of Gagne's model. I don't know whether I had shown this to you earlier on or not, but this was something which I had done for one of the schools, one of the open schools in one of the states of India, where when we were designing material for them, we had given them that this is how you do it. And like, for instance, when you're talking about gaining attention, you can put in a story, or you can put it a anecdote or a poem, and stuff like that. So this was how we had I had designed it for them, and then they used it for different course materials, they use this model for their different course materials which they did. So okay, this is what I thought. How important do you think is it to follow an instruction in a classroom distance in any education context? Please share your experiences. So maybe you can spend about 2 to 3 minutes. Let's just talk about it. I'd like to know from you whether in your system or where you work, are you following any kind of model of instructional design? Does your institution prescribe that you should follow something? If you can share with the rest of the class and with me, it will be nice. Yes, Mr. Moses. Mr. Moses, would you like to say something?
Okay, ma. I actually the Ghanaian 9 event instruction you just spoke about. I discovered that it's more or less consistent with the way lesson plan are being carried out in the here in Nigeria. So when we talk about gaining their attention, which is popularly, I think, is the entering behavior of the teacher into the class, then informing learners of the objectives. Those are the objectives of what you want to teach. Then stimulating recall of prior learning, which is popularly refers to as previous knowledge. So I think the designing an instructional uh, uh, instructional material, designing instructional material actually do help in learning, especially after you have designed it. If the teacher that ought to take the lesson probably is not around, another teacher can take up the lesson and still teach it effectively the way the teacher that ought to take it will take it, because all the steps that he needs to follow has actually been outlined. So I think it's very, very important in the learning institution.
Mr. Moses, thank you so much. It is, if it is systematically built, then it allows a continuity, as you're saying. Also, it allows that continuity to be undertaken. I'm interested also in knowing from you, in terms of the analysis part of it. Is there anything that that you or any of you have done, either as teachers or as trainers, where you are these things what we're talking about, analysis and affordability or costing, are you all, any of you, involved in any of those, or in deciding the curriculum, any of those activities? Are you involved?
With me, madam, I'm involved in evaluation. I'm the curriculum evaluator, whereby if textbooks are submitted to the Ministry of Education, then we are called as subject specialists to evaluate the content, the knowledge, and some other things. Yes. So, like in Zambia, we do what we have the syllabus for secondary schools. Each grade level has a syllabus. Now, from the syllabus, there is something that we extract that we call schemes of work. For maybe a certain period of time, there's a scheme of work. Then from the scheme of work, you have to come up with what we call the lesson plan. You make a lesson plan, of course, following, is it Bloom's taxonomy? Because in our country, they emphasize much to use, is it Bloom's taxonomy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, many education systems are following Bloom's taxonomy, and especially in terms of evaluation. Also, it is being question papers are being made following this kind of taxonomy only. Anyone else would like to share an experience? ज्योति एक बहुत बड़ा सही आ गया wasp.
Hello.
Yes, Mr. Buhari.
Thank you, Ma. I just want to talk about one issue which is important of using instructional design in classroom. So, especially using the projector. So, if you're using it in your class, especially if your school have it, so it's so important for the student because you can gain their attention more than if you're not using those kind of things. Like example, if you design your lesson in a PPT or in Canva and you present it to them, it can be more listen to them more than if you're not using it. That's my experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buhari. So I can see that there is some of you do have the experience of being either subject specialists or of being. I think there is Mr. Matthews who wants to say something. Yes, Mr. Matthews.
I think
Mr. Buhari has already spoken. Yes, please continue.
All right. Mine, I just want to add, I think what Mr. Morris was trying to say is the similar situation here in Malawi. Yeah, so whereby before
Country are you from, Mr. Matthew? Which country are you from?
Malawi.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, so actually I was trying to complement or supplement on what Morris was saying from, I think from Zambia. Yeah, so here in Malawi, it's the same. We use, for example, we use we have the curriculum. We have the curriculum that we follow. So from the curriculum, then we use the syllabuses. From the syllabuses, in other words, syllabus is like a guiding tool. So in the syllabus, actually, we have, for example, they give us just suggested teaching and maybe learning resources. So with the nature of our country, since it is developing, sometimes maybe not everything that is written in the syllabus we use in the classroom setting. So actually, sometimes the syllabus just guide us. So as a teachers, as we design the instructional materials, sometimes we go for Talula, which is teaching and learning using locally available resources. Yeah, so this one is possible through the guiding tool, which is the syllabus, which is implemented through the Ministry of Education, Science, and then Technology. So that is what I wanted to add to what my colleague was trying to explain. Thank you.
Thank you so much. See, as you can see that this type of sharing that you're doing is so important, is also helping us to understand each other's countries and contexts, and what is happening in Malawi, Zambia, Nigeria. There is much learning that can take place. I just want to ask, from what both Mr. Morris and Mr. Matthew said, are you giving the learning outcomes in the curriculum, just as a matter of interest for my own self?
Yes,
Not
Doc.
yet?
Yes.
Yes, you are. Okay. Oh, that's nice. That's good. I will, because this is an area which really interests me, and maybe in the next class, I will show you the document because you have elaborated this. In the next class, I'll show you what we made for this Masters in Distance Education. We made a learning outcome based curriculum framework, LOCF. So I hope I remember that, and I'll just show you a picture of that, because that is how we designed the fact that this is the course, as you said, this is the course, this is the content, and we've designed each, for each unit we designed the learning outcomes also. So I hope I can show that to you. Thank you so much for all your sharing your the work that is being done in your respective countries, and it's interesting for all of us.
You are not audible, madam. You are not audible. Unmute your.
Oh dear, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Uh, I said that the first and foremost thing is analysis, because analysis helps us to understand what is actually the lay of the ground. And once we have the analysis with us, then only we can build upon the objectives, because those objectives will obviously be used to address the gaps that are found in the analysis, right? In terms of, once we have done these two things, then we come to what is called, how do you, what kind of a system, what kind of an evaluation system are you going to develop, so that you are able to measure the achievements of that course, or to see whether those have been met or not. Again, the learning tasks are very important, because the once you have got the analysis and you've got your objectives, then you decide what sort of learning tasks are you going to do, what is it that you are going to make, as whether it is in terms of, then the process starts, the process of designing starts, whether you are going to make the entry tests, or how do you do it, what kind of content are you going to put into it, what kind of subject matter will you add it, what kind of activities are you going to put into it. And another important part of it is the fact that when you design the system, when you design the system and you decide how to implement it, then all the other parts which are important, where, as I said, that in countries like ours, like developing countries, we want to make sure that the implementation plan is such that the maximum numbers are included in the system, that we are able to reach out to those, especially when we're talking about open schooling, when we're talking about open universities, we want to reach out to maximum number of persons who are able to otherwise not access a formal face-to-face learning system. Therefore, our instructional design has to be such that it caters to the distance learner, and the implementation of the program also has to be such that you might decide that you will have study centers, you will have regional centers, you will have counselors, you will have teacher helpers. So those are also part of the instructional design system, because you are making a plan for the implementation of the system. So in this instructional design, right from in all instructional design, right from the beginning, which is from the analysis right down to the implementation and the feedback, all that is part of the system of Banati's system, I would say. Then here is another model which is called the ARCS model, which is by by John Keller. This model has four categories which are there. And here in this model of instructional design, basically what is said by Keller is that there must be the discourse must be designed in such a way that first and foremost, it arouses the curiosity of the learner. And this curiosity of the learner has to be aroused in some by making putting in place some mechanism by which you gain the attention of the learner. And this is something like what in the previous in Robert Garnier's system also, that how do you attract the attention of the person who is going to be using that system. The other thing is that why should I take a course? Why should I be motivated? Keller is talking actually about motivational conditions. Why should I take this course? How relevant is it to me? Does it help me? Maybe if I take this course and I complete this course successfully, it might give me a promotion in my work. So who am I catering to? Who are the people who will find this course relevant? Maybe it is maybe it is a course which is, supposing I want to make a course which is on yoga. Yoga. So I might find that if I make a course on yoga, it will help me in my health, and it will help me to relax. It will help me to get to be more healthy. Also, this type of a course, to find whether it meets my professional needs or whether it meets my personal needs, what is it that it makes the course relevant for me, is also something that has to be analyzed before you start actually making the course. The next thing that is important is that how the C here stands for confidence, whether I'm able to give the right instructions and the feedbacks in terms of the fact that how can I gain the learner's confidence in when I am delivering this course, such that the learner feels that, yes, this is something that I can do. Yes, I have it in me to complete the course. I have it in me to continue doing this course. This is not a difficult course. It's a step-by-step course. I can manage it, and I can devote this much of time to do it. So the course must be able to infuse confidence in the learner, so that they are able to opt for the course or to select the course to it. And most important part of it is the S, which is of satisfaction, where again Keller says that if there is something that is threatening, then people will not take it. They will move away from it. But whatever you are offering, your instructional method should be such that the learner finds it non-threatening, that the learner finds that this is something where, as I said, confidence and satisfactions go together, because the learner should feel that by doing this, I will gain something. There will be an enhancement of my knowledge. There will be an enhancement of my esteem, prestige. Maybe in society, I will be better accepted, or any matter that gives you some sort of personal or professional satisfaction also. So this model of instructional design takes, which is called the ARCS model. This features on attention, relevance, confidence, and satisfaction to be, for a person to be motivated enough to take the course. When you design your course, you should keep in mind these types of analysis should be done according to Keller. And therefore, when you're designing the material also, the material has designing the course, then you have to apply attention, relevance, confidence to each part of the course. When you're doing the analysis, when you're doing the designing the material, because Keller believes that the person must be motivated, A, to enroll for the course, B, to be able to stay within the course, and again, thirdly, to be able to complete the course. If the learner is not motivated, if your course does not have motivational conditions, then it will not be a good instructional design according to Keller. Okay. Then we are talking about, thank you. Then we are talking about this model, which is called the Dick, Carey and Carey instructional design model. This model is very popular, and it is a model which is used very often it is used very often in designing distance learning material. And most instructional design institutions, or rather most open and distance learning institutions in India, usually follow the Dick, Carey and Carey instructional design model. Why do we follow it? We follow it because it is a very systematic way in which material is designed. As you can see from this chart, from this diagram, that the first thing to do is to assess the needs. You assess your needs, you define your goals, and based upon this analysis has to be in two ways. One way is that you do the instructional analysis. And instructional analysis basically means that you identify the goals, you identify how will this instructional design fit into the overall system of the institution. And at the same time, you also analyze the learners and their context. Again, as I said, analyzing learners means where will the learners come from? Why will they come here? What kind of background will these learners have? Whether they will find it useful or not. What is the purpose of making this course? So these, I think somebody wants to come in at this late hour. So finding this will be this type of a course. Doing this analysis is very important. Once you have done the analysis, then you will write out the objectives of the course. What are the objectives of the course? What is it that as a course designer, if it is my course, then I will write out what is it based upon this analysis. Then what is it that I want to achieve through these objectives? Having said that, the next step is to design the assessment strategy. When we in block 3, when we talk about learning outcomes and we talked about objectives, I will talk about the connection between objectives and assessment. But at this point of time, I'll just say that once objectives are identified, you will have to find ways and means. You will have to develop the instruments by which you will assess the objectives. Have they been achieved or not? Then you will also develop the strategy for the assessment. And lastly, you will then begin the development of the instructional material. Designing the instructional material means that you will select the content, you will select the themes, you will divide that into different types of units or lessons or chapters, whatever you call it in your system. You will divide it into small units. You will allocate marks, credits, grades to each of them and make this curriculum. Once the curriculum is done, then you will also design the formative and the assessment tools for it. And you will also design how you will conduct this assessment, which will take place. In terms of the same process will take place when you do the revision also. But idea being that it is a very, very systematic step-by-step way where you are moving from analysis right up till the design and right up till the stage where you are implementing it. Simultaneously, you are also designing the ways by which you will implement it at every stage. So I think I'm going to stop here at the moment, and we will continue with this, because I just want to keep 5 minutes for you all to ask me any other questions that you want to ask me. Those questions you can ask me, and this part of it, this part of the course, this part of it, we are going to do. The other models of instructional design we will do subsequently in the next week we will do. But in the meanwhile, in case you would like to ask me any questions, I'll be happy to answer those questions. And I will also talk about the assignments. I think somebody had asked me in the beginning of the class. Anything that you would like to ask me?
Yes, I have a
Mr.
question.
Matthew?
Yes, yes.
Yes, please.
When we are looking at this, the Keller's motivational design, A stands
Kellers?
for the
Yes.
yes. A stands for the attention. We look at the attention, mean to say the design should at least arise the curiosity in the learners. Now, my question
Yes.
here is,
Yes.
we know that what is good to one learner may not be good to another learner. Now, how should we make sure that the instructional design that has been made is raising the curiosity? Do we look at the quantity or majority of the learners, or we should make sure that each and every learner should be aroused? How should we measure that this instructional design is arousing the interest of the learners? Do we look at the majority, minority, or what is the good measure for that? Thank you.
That's a very, very interesting question, of course. Because as I told you, whether it is Keller or whether it is Garnier, they all talk about the fact that you should be able to have something in your course that immediately catches the attention of the learner. And I'm saying this, that's, you see, today we are in the, you see, if you go on to Facebook or you go on to any of these social media sites, you'll find that they are adopting all and every kind of way by which you are forced to click on that, whether it is by 30-second reels, whether it is by any kind of other dramatic instance. In here today in India, we are talking about the fact that we were told that initially we were told that you have to make videos of 30 minutes, because it was felt that videos will supplement the course material and help to gain attention. Now we find we are also now talking about the fact that we should make shorter videos, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, because gaining attention has become, in this age where there is a plethora of so many materials, so much of information, how is it that you gain attention? Now your question is that, do I gain attention for each and every person or for overall? You see, what might work for Anita may not work for Matthew. So it's difficult to say, but but the thing is that if in your class you have 40 students, now I'm talking not of a distance class, I'm talking about a face-to-face class. You could show, you could take one example, one item, maybe it's a small video, maybe it's a case study, maybe it's even asking one of the students to come up and say a poem or say something like that. Basically engaging and also keeping them attentive in class. I cannot tell you that, Mr. Matthew, do this will work, because again, your context, your classroom context is completely different from, say, Mr. Morris or Mr. Ishaku's context. So each person will have to decide their own way in which what will work for them and what will not work for them. So basically what Keller is saying and what Gagne is also saying, that think about this thing, Don't be pedantic, and do not everybody cannot adopt the same thing. So that is something, the principle is to gain attention, but how you gain attention will depend upon your own circumstances and your own educational and social conditions. Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Moses.
Yes, ma. Actually, I wanted to ask regarding the assignment because I was trying to go through it. And the first question on the assignment, I don't know, maybe it's correct or so. It was that we should discuss behavioralism. So I don't know, maybe it is behaviorism or it is behavioralism. So I want you to look into that, ma. The first question on the assignment.
Okay.
What I saw there was
Okay.
behavioralism, not behaviorism.
Okay, I'll see it.
Just on the same,
Anything
madam.
else?
Just on the same.
Yes, Mr. Moses.
Yes, I remember asking you a question on the same behaviorism and behavioralizing. Then you responded by saying, is it some are using American English, others is it British? But the term is just the same. But when I went on the internet, I discovered that behaviorism with L, it has a different definition with the one which has R, behaviorism.
Okay, fine. Okay, I've heard you, but I'm not making any comment on it, because you have to answer the what I'm saying is that, you see, the whatever is in the course in terms of theories of behavioralism, the assignment is that we are not going to ask you what is outside the course. So your assignment, we are not we in this, at least in this assignment, we are not in these courses, we are restricting ourselves or limiting ourselves to what is part of the course. So you should answer as per the course only. All right. Anyone else?
Then, ma, sorry, ma, I don't know if I
So
can just take us back a little bit about the example of that Mr. Buhari raised. So I was saying that example, is it a good example of constructivism or cognitivism? Because to my own understanding, I feel the example is more cognitivism than constructivism. So I don't know if you can make few comments on that, ma.
when we talk of cognitism, right, we are talking about knowledge building. Hmm? I'm trying to put it as simply as possible. When we're talking about knowledge building, we are talking about the fact that there is schema, and in that, knowledge is getting added every time there is a observation or any kind of thing. Your knowledge is adding up, and your schema is being added up. When we're talking about constructivism, of course, constructivism also has cognitism as its basic connect. But what is being talked about is the fact that there is something called a social constructivism, where because of your own experiences, because of the way you understand an activity, or the way you understand things, in view of that, your experiences help you to develop an understanding of it. So even we're talking about constructivism, it is about the fact that learners, because of their own discoveries, they may make some other sense of it. Whereas in cognitism, we are only talking about the development of mental processes and the way in which knowledge is processed in processed and just one moment, Jyoti, you tell them I'm in class. Just tell her I'm in class. I'll call in 5 minutes. So in terms of process, just understanding the thing of knowledge, and in terms of the fact that constructivists talk about the fact that there is a social we are in a society, we have our own culture, we have our own language. All this influences the way in which our knowledge is built. So this type of thing, it's not like the behaviorists are completely they are only talking about stimulus response, that your behavior changes because there is stimulus and there is a response which is happening. But in terms of cognitism, it is building of knowledge. But in terms of constructivism, there is a definite role which is to be thought of, because we are talking about the way in which our own experiences are help in building our understanding, and the fact that when we are talking about designing processes for it, then reflection, being able to reflect, being able to solve problems, being able to collaborate with each other. It's not an individual thing. Constructivists believe that there is a lot of learning that takes place from peer learning, from sharing, from experience discussions, from group work, from peer tutoring. So these are all different processes that are there, which as good instructional designers, we can adopt all these theories to make good courses, good learning materials. You don't have to be in a straitjacket with blinkers on. You have to see your own situation and see what is it that will work for me and my class, and also at what level am I teaching. So I hope that will help you to have a better understanding of the theories of learning. I think we'll have to close now, and I'd like to have a group photograph of my class. Can you just put on your cameras, please? Please do put on your cameras. Only 4 or 5 cameras are on. Please put on your cameras. Okay. So that's us. Then I'm not able to see today, Angela. I'm not able to see many of the ladies. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma.
So
Thank you, Ma.
thank you very much. I'll see you next Tuesday. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.